All right, so we just finished talking about volcanoes and earthquakes and tsunamis and plate tectonics and all of these huge, crazy things that cause dramatic changes into the world. But if I look outside, I don't really see any tsunamis or earthquakes or tornadoes or anything like that. I just see wind. But I know that the earth is changing because there's hills that look different than they did years ago. There's lakes that look different. And it makes people question why. How is that changing if we don't have plate tectonics in North Dakota? Well, the first step to that answer is weathering. Weathering is basically the breakdown of rocks or other earthly materials. So, if you look at this rock, for example, it used to be a nice, solid, strong structure, but it broke down and eventually will break down into many pieces. And in thousands of years, those giant chunks of rocks could become small pieces of sand. So there are many ways that weathering occurs, but the most common one, especially in North Dakota, that we see is weathering through water. Now, flowing water, like liquid water, lakes, rivers, oceans, stuff like that, that will cause weathering. That'll cause cliffs to erode away, to break down, all kinds of stuff like that. But in North Dakota, we get some very cold winters that have a lot of frozen ground. And frozen ground or frozen water, ice, will cause a great deal of weathering, actually. So basically, water will collect in a crack of a rock or a crack of the road or crack of the sidewalk, anything like that. And when it freezes, those molecules will expand and they basically get wider. And it's almost like they're two arms and they're pushing the walls of the rock. And once those walls are pushed, it causes a crack to occur and it makes the crack a little bit deeper. And eventually, we have our nice summers where the ice will thaw and become water, and that water will seep through the crack. And just like we were talking about with rivers, that water flows. And as it flows, it carries away different sediments with it. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that will cause that crack to widen and get larger. And eventually, year after year after year after year, there will be water in that one rock, and it'll continue this cycle over and over again until this crack goes all the way through and breaks. So that is how weathering occurs with water and ice. But ice and water aren't the only things. Oxygen or pressure can cause weathering in rocks and earth. We can have different weathering with acid or with acid rain or different things like that. There's chemicals. There's organisms like humans or bacteria, different things like that. And then, of course, there is wind. So the the first type of weathering is physical weathering, which is caused by wind, water, pressure, or humans. Think of like a hill. And in that hill, there is a tree, and that those roots from that tree are causing that hill to break down a little bit. Now, that tree is causing weathering to that hill. Or if you think about a nice road, and there's a lot of vehicles driving on that road, eventually there's going to be a crack on that road, and the more people drive, the more that crack will expand until that road has a huge crack and it needs to be repaired. That is weathering from human activity. The other type of weathering is called chemical weathering, which is caused by different chemicals in the air. This is a good example. Statue of Liberty, when it was given to us, it was actually made out of copper, like in this picture. And after years of acid rain or bad chemicals in the ozone layer, that caused the Statue of Liberty to turn this bluish green color. In addition, caves also have the stalagmites and stalactites are chemical weathering. As they drip down onto the bottom, they build up the one from the top, and then as it drips, it continues to build up the one from the bottom until they connect and make one full line. And yeah, if you think of rust, that's also weathering. There's all kinds of different types of weathering.